folks. So, we've talked about on this channel before that one of the reasons why trans identities are valid, or at least I've inferred as such, is that we have evidence surrounding them as a social phenomenon that shows clearly that not only they exist, that this is trans people's actual experiences and identities, but also that there are real demonstrable phenomenon when people don't get to transition or when you are a part of a marginalized group. So let's get into it. Trans adults twice as likely to die as cis adults, eye-opening study finds. Vic Parsons writes September 3rd. Now, I want to be clear. This is a recently piece of research. We don't know if this has been, this is verified as of yet. I'm going to act as though this is at least potential information, but I want everyone to hold it in a light hand because, again, replication data is a thing. People need to check out methodology, but I do think it's important for us to discuss this, and it is coming out of what appears to be a fairly reputable fucking resource. So let's go.
Trans adults are twice as likely to die as cis adults, according to an analysis of almost 50 years of medical records from an Amsterdam gender clinic.
So, we're going to see some things that are going to be duh moments. Let's go.
Trans women had particularly high risks of death, and are nearly 3 times more likely to die than cis women and twice as likely as cis men, with the most common causes including HIV-related illnesses, heart disease, lung cancer, and suicide. Trans men had similar mortality rates to cis men, but were twice as likely to die as cis women, especially from non-natural causes like suicide. Published in the Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology, the study authors said their findings show the need for improving social acceptance and healthcare for trans adults.
Yep. So this is nothing new. In fact, this is kind of one of those things that is by its nature sort of duh. We know based on the research we've even looked at on this channel, including through the WPATH standards, that the reality of the situation is that trans identities are kind of fucked. And that is, we are targets of harassment, targets of bother, targets of violence, and even have had legal systems that exist to allow people to be innocent of murdering us. The simple fact of the matter is that if trans women, if this is accurate, and that is trans women are 3 times more likely than cis women, that is insanity. That means any trans woman watching this absolutely has every right to be concerned about anytime she goes on a date, anytime she is in public. This speaks to a way in which so many factors are in play. HIV-related illnesses, is that because a lot of trans women end up doing sex work? Heart disease, okay, well, again, trans people tend to be lower on the economic scale as far as class, so that's a thing. Lung cancer, again, early vaping and use of cigarettes, things like that. And again, those tend to be more likely in lower caste systems because those people are targeted predatorially. And then suicide, because we know based on our evidence that trans people are more likely to commit suicide. We looked at this in our previous segment when we talked about the 41%. Right? 41% of trans people have attempted suicide.
Researchers used the medical records of nearly 3,000 trans women and more than 1,600 trans men who were treated at the Amsterdam University Medical Center between 1972 and 2018, finding that the increased risk of mortality among trans adults compared to cis adults did not decrease over the almost 5 decades studied.
So if that's true, that's huge. The idea that in all of the activism we've done, all of the ways that we've tried to better and improve trans experiences, there was no decrease. Now, this could be environmental. Despite those numbers being pretty good for sample sizes, let's be clear, This was done in Amsterdam. And it's entirely possible that the laws there are more restrictive or have more negative effects on trans people. So we can't ignore that because this is out of one medical center. So again, when you're looking at research, you need to kind of poke apart at the things that don't quite make sense. That doesn't mean the article is wrong. It just means we need to look at it with a very, very, like, suspect eye doesn't sound right, but in a framing of this could be true and appears to be so, but is still under review. Make sense? Zena, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, I'm just following along.
Okay. So, let's hear what this has to say.
However, they cautioned against extrapolating the results of the study onto trans populations in other countries, pointing out that certain groups of trans people were excluded, including those who accessed trans healthcare under the age of 17, those who received puberty-blocking medication, and those who had taken both testosterone and estrogen hormone replacement therapy, and that 90% of the study group were white.
So that's a weirdly written sentence, right? So those who have received trans healthcare under the age of 17, here's another group, those who have received puberty blocker medications, and another group, and those who have taken both progesterone and, I don't know who would take both, but I assume that you mean their appropriate one too, yeah. Oh, estrogen, for some reason they wrote that weird. I think that's a typo. That O is supposed to be around here somewhere.
Yeah.
So do they mean under 17 who took testosterone and estrogen hormone therapy, or do they mean anyone that did? Because if that's the case, isn't this an argument for people who want to medically transition to be able to do so then? Also, 90% of the study is white. Holy shit, that's a big one. Also, things might be as good as they can be in Amsterdam for the cohort most marginalized.
Okay. Tiamat's filling in OEST is a spelling of estrogen.
Yeah, but they didn't say estrogen. They said estrogen. It's OESTRA. Anyway.
While all of the trans adults included in the study were, or had at some point, taken hormone replacement treatment, the researchers said that this itself was not a driver of the health disparities observed. Most of the causes of increased death that the researchers identified, like suicide, are not a consequence of hormone treatment side effects.
True.
Trans adults are at a much higher risk of dying by suicide than their cis counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
A report by the Center for American Progress, a liberal think tank based in Washington, D.C., in May found that trans adults are 5 times more likely than straight, cis adults to have made at least one suicide attempt in their lifetime. The elevated suicide risks for trans adults stem from social factors including family rejection, institutional discrimination, living in poverty, housing insecurity, criminalization, and a lack of access to gender-affirming health care.
Viri Rona said in chat, just did some blitz research. Until 2001, trans people wanting to change their legal gender had to divorce their partner, and until 2014, trans people had to be sterilized before their gender change was accepted. Mia Mulder has talked about this, that in her country they had to do sterilizations. Like, this is a pretty common thing in Europe, apparently. Like, do you think that had something to do with them feeling shitty? Holy fuck. Like, can we just say that any kind of thing to sterilize a marginalized group is just cringe? Like, it's just gross? Like, it's just an attempt to do eugenics? Like, we gotta get rid of those trans genes? Seriously, that shit is fucking gross. Let's finish this last piece up, and then we can get into some more discussion.
Mm-hmm.
The first author of the Amsterdam study, Christel de Block, told Forbes that most of the suicides and deaths related to HIV in the almost 50 years of the study happened in the first couple of decades, suggesting that greater social acceptance and access to support, and improved treatments for HIV, may have played an important role in reducing deaths related to these causes among transgender people in recent years.
Yeah, so according to their data, this appears to show that a lot of the suicides and the deaths of HIV-related illness are No, I would agree to you, Matt. My language wasn't great. It's foul. It's eugenics. Danger Fairy's absolutely right. I was literally trying to remember the term eugenics. My apologies. The simple fact of the matter is that, yes, there are demonstrable ways that the changes in gender-affirming care and the changes of laws have allowed for real and meaningful improvement, but clearly this is not done. And I wanted to show everyone this because I think it's really important for us to recognize that this type of stuff is always in play, that when we're talking about intersectionality, we're talking about a frame of analysis by which to look at how systems of power affect those who are marginalized in multiple intersectional ways. What we need to talk about and we need to look at is the data. The thing that goes with that data is the experiences of those marginalized groups, because usually, unless they're bad actors such as, say, Candace Owens or whomever, the fact of the matter is those reports can often, not always, but often lead us to the data that we need and the understanding of what's going on. Okay? So I just wanted to show everyone this and be aware of this. If anyone tells you that trans people are this huge lobbying thing and none of this stuff is true, assume they're a TERF or a conservative. The data is against them in every way, shape, or form. Even if this study has issues, we've looked at the studies used for gender-affirming care. We've shown how rapid onset gender dysphoria on this channel is bullshit. Not to mention, went over briefly, and I'll go over it on a whole stream if I need to, Florence Ashley's work deconstructing why this is nonsense. Not to mention, when talking about trans misogyny, we've deconstructed why that's the case, why this fake diagnosis exists, and why trans women are most affected by this. The intersection of being trans and a woman is hated by society. But the fact that we show incredibly negative things for trans men or trans masc people too is not acceptable. So I just want you guys to understand this and understand that we still have a lot of work to do. If you are having any suicidal ideations, please call a suicide hotline. If you're under 18, Trevor Project, please. Please, please, please.
We like you, and we care.
True. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can also ring the bell if you want to be notified of our videos. If you want to help the channel, you can donate at streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip. You also can become a patron at patreon.com/transgirltherapist. For as low as $3, you can support our channel. Thanks for watching.